In Parasha's Vayera, it says, Baruch Hu appeared to Avram Avinu in the Eloine Mamre, the plains of Mamre. Now, Mamre is the one who gave him advice regarding the bris. It's a medrash, Rashi brings. But to the schus about Mamre, Hashkadosh Baruch Hu appears to Avram in Mamre's place. But that's where Avram lived. I mean, where should Hashem appear to him? It was B'Baka Chayla. So, it was Eloine Mamre. But you see from here, the reason why he lived in Eloine Mamre was because of the schus Mamre had given him. It's because Baruch Hu orchestrated the events to be that Avram should live there. And therefore Hashem will appear to Avram in Eloine Mamre, and Mamre gets the credit. You see, Baruch Hu makes everything work, every place we have to be. You share this Mori the Kemaiser with a neighbor of mine, Rav Asher Groundland. Mori the Kemaiser, his father used to collect for Yad La'achim. He was the first, I think, a Rav in Scotland. Anyway, very dignified person, very happy person. Anyway, he was nifter, and Rav Asher's mother wanted to carry on whatever she could to help after his patira, so she would come around in different places, and Rav Asher would join his mother when she was in Miami. He would go there to be with her for Shabbos. So one Shabbos he's supposed to go there, and she calls him up and says the plans fell through, she's not going to be in Miami. So he said, so wherever you're going to be, I'll come. I'm there to be with you. Ended up being in Fort Lauderdale, so there for Shabbos. Remember, they stayed, a very gracious host. And Shabbos morning he had a choice apparently of 3 different shuls to go to. He chose the closest shul. He goes to the shul, and there was a bar mitzvah. A lot of people were there. Rosh is a very gracious person. He always loves to make people feel good. So he went over to the Baal Simcha. He never met him, doesn't know him. Shabbos, Mazel Tov, your son did a beautiful job on his Torah, whatever he learned. Oh, thank you. What's your name? My name is Groundland. He said, Groundland? By any chance, any relative of the Rabbi Groundland who used to collect for the Yad La'achim? He says, that's my father. Ooh, the man gets very excited. He calls his wife from the other side. Groundland's here, come over. Well, comes running over and he doesn't know what's happening. He says, I want to tell you something, that when we got married, it's family planning. They were officially more modern, so to call themselves. And we had one child, and that was it. We didn't want to have any more at the time until quite some years passed. We wanted some more, but nothing was happening. Went to the doctors, they couldn't help us. And then Rabbi Groundland walks into the house. He's here for Yad La'achim. Says, Rabbi, give me a bracha. Bless me. I want to have more children. He says, who am I to give you a bracha? Like, please, you have to give us a blessing to have more children. And he said, look, in the merit of the charity that's that you're going to perform, you should be blessed to have a child. Well, that bracha worked. And it's this child's bar mitzvah that you are right now attending was from that bracha. Moshe orchestrates the events that take place where it has to be at the right time, in the right place. It's all Masudar. Incidentally, just a similar story. Here's actually a few stories which I have to share it. But he said he was in Bayit Vegan, I believe, in Eretz Yisrael a few years ago, Yom Tov, and he liked to go to a certain shul. And he asked the Gabbai if he where he could sit. He said, any place that they don't have a name on the back of the seat, you can sit there. So he came early Shabbos morning, or Yom Tov, whatever it was. He sat down in the seat and he was saying Karbanis. The Gabbai walks in and asks him, why are you sitting here? He said, well, you told me any seat I could sit. If there's no name on the back, it's not a problem. He said, but why are you sitting here? So he said again, the same answer. He said, but why are you sitting in this seat? Well, what do you mean? He says, well, your father used to daven in Beit Vegan. He was a toishab, but this wasn't the shul he was always kavoyin. But whenever he davened in this shul, he would daven in this seat. Well, once I already said the first 2 stories, I have to say the third one. So, he also about Hashgacha, his father's yard side, Titaka went on Har Zeisim with his mother and his sister, and they were the kever didn't have a minyan. Anyway, he stayed around a bit longer. Maybe a minyan will materialize, and after nothing was happening, they were going to leave, and then they passed by the Bluzhev's kever. So after daven there by the Bluzhev. Anyway, all of a sudden Chassidim materialized out of nowhere, and he had a whole minyan. He says, Rabbi, I have my father's yard side. Would you mind coming to the kever? I can say a kaddish. He said, Kol Kavod. He said, why are you people here? We're stolen the Chassidim. Stolen it. I'm from Detroit. Connection to Detroit. Anyway, why are you here today? He says, our grandfather Shloshim. Who's his grandfather? His grandfather is the Gabbai of the Loitzke Rebbe, the brother of the Stolen Rebbe. The Loitzke Rebbe would come to Detroit either day or after or before the yard site of the Stolen Rebbe here in Detroit. When the Stolen Rebbe today would come, he would come either day after or day before. Who would Masader, who would be the one to prepare or pick him up and take him to the kever would be Rabbi Groundman. Now that the Rebbe comes with a number of Chassidim, he prepares a Suda for them every year. So Rabbi Groundman is the one who's Masader for the Loitzke Rebbe to be by the kever of the Stolener. The Loitzke Rebbe's Gabbai, the Shloshim, was at the same time that his grandchildren turned up to be a minion for Rabbi Groundman's father's yard site. So, the Baruch Hashem fit the Welt in the way that wherever the schus is supposed to come about, it happens in that manner. Okay. Anyway, the another Nakuda I want to talk about over in the Parasha also is, he says that the Yetzer Hara does not dominate Malachim. Rashi tells us, what's the message in that? Okay, so Yetzer Hara doesn't have Malachim. We're not Malachim. We have no shaykhs to Malachim. But that's not true, because we do have a connection to Malachim. We know that the pasuk tells us, if your Rebbe is a malach, he looks like a malach, you should accept Torah from him. What does that mean? What is a malach? How do you know what a malach looks like? So, in truth, it's a very interesting concept that people, especially the Chassidim, the Rebbe, Heilig, the Rebbe, if it's not my Rebbe, it's your Rebbe, I can see flaws in him. People find chesroinus in people very easily. When it's my Rebbe, I don't find any chesroinus. That's what a person has to look at the person who receives Torah from as a malach. There's no flaws in such a person. Kabel Torah, when you have such a person that you look up to like that, it's much easier to accept Torah from such a person. You look and you melamed chus. It's a message for us is that you should accept Torah from him. We're going to translate the word malach as a messenger, shliach. So also the Rebbe has to be someone who's a shliach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, giving over the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah to Talmidim. But for us, we have to look at it as something that we can take from as a malach. Now, another very interesting thing in the Parasha is HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to destroy Sodom. So he comes and tells Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu comes and he starts to plead with Hashem, davening with Hashem, and he uses interesting words. He says, Hashem, please don't get angry if I ask there should be 30 tzaddikim. He already has 50, 40. Oh, I'm just off of a for Hashem, please have Rahman this way. Let me talk again a little bit more. I mean, Bishleba, if you're talking to a person, you come to beg him for something, you're like nagging, you know? Oh, please this. No. Please that. No, please. Please don't get angry. Let me ask one more request. He's not talking to a person. He's talking to Kudsha Brich, he's talking to Kadosh Baruch Hu, he's Molei Rachamim, he's full of compassion. He's not a human being. So what, are you going to nag him? What's the problem? You're asking Kadosh Baruch Hu, if there's 20 tzaddikim, save them. What would be Avram Avinu's reason to have to plead and to excuse himself? He's coming to do a chesed. Whatever his the idea is pleading and davening for people, so let him daven. So plead and beg and beg. Hashem wants us to plead. That's Vayitzar by Moed. Moshe made a daven 515 tefillos. You keep davening. Hashem says no. It's a different story, but that's what Hashem wants from us to daven. No, I'm sorry. I apologize. What are you apologizing for? So it could also be that here really it's the first place we really see tefillah. Tefillah is very powerful, and tefillah works with the words that we use. But tefillah is very important in understanding that here, Avram Avinu already said 50, 40. Now everybody understands seichel-wise, well, keep going, 30, 20. I mean, Hashem said, well, there's no 50. Well, maybe 40. No, there's no 40. Well, it sounds a little funny to say, well, maybe there's 30. Hashem gets it. I mean, 50, 40, 30, like it works. So why ever maybe let's keep going. So it could appear to be chas v'shalom, as if Avram was saying, well, you're not getting it. I'm going to ask for 30 now, chas v'shalom. So no, since in tefillah, the halacha, the way tefillah works is that whatever's spoken, that's the power of tefillah. B'charbi b'kashti, tefillah works with the words that come out of your mouth. I have to say, I only ask for 40, I only ask for 50. Speak it up. I have to say in tefillah 30. Not chas v'shalom, as if to say chas v'shalom Hashem, you don't get it. But in the power of tefillah is teaching us how tefillah is you have to speak out every word. You have to speak out. As a word that about the family that went to England for Yom Tov, It was Erev Pesach, whatever it was, and they landed in the airport, and they were in the car, and all of a sudden the husband realized, my talis and tefillin, I don't know where they are. He said, well, we had it at the airport. So it's probably in the trunk of the car. Anyway, when they got to their destination, they emptied the trunk, and the talis and tefillin was not there. And they got so frantic, and they ran back to the airport. They did it all over them. A few hours left to Yom Tov. Anyway, they did not have the talis and tefillin then. They filed a report. Now, in the talis and tefillin bag, this woman had her jewelry that she put in there, a very chashuv silver bracelet, whatever it was. She didn't want to tell her husband this because she just stuck it in at the last second. It was the most secure place to be, talis and tefillin. But she didn't want to upset him more. And anyway, she didn't say a word about it. And that night they had to go back. They had Yom Tov, and Baruch Hashem, they experienced a beautiful, beautiful Yom Tov. But later on at night, after the Seder, she sees her husband sitting on the bed davening, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please give me back my talis and my tefillin, mamish tefillas. He was maftzid, the Baruch Hashem, please, I beg you. Every night, we would daven. Then they ran back to the airport, they filed reports. Nothing happened. Day after Yom Tov, nothing happened. They went to the airport to leave to come back to America. They didn't have the talis and tefillin. Once they arrive in America, a couple of days later, they get a phone call. Your talis and tefillin have been found. They were ecstatic because they had left, since he took something for one of his relatives, and there was a note with the name and address and the phone number. Anyway, it was found, and they were ecstatic. He's getting his talis and tefillin back. Now she tells her husband, by the way, I didn't tell you this till now, but my silver bracelet, whatever, was in the talis and tefillin too. Ooh, wow, thank you. You didn't give me the agmas nefesh before. And they're very excited about it, very ecstatic. Now, when they got the talis and tefillin, when they arrived, they opened it up, talis and tefillin were there, the bracelet was not there. In shock. What happened? And then she dawned on her, very interesting. She never davened for the bracelet to come back. She relied on his davening. He was davening for the talis and tefillin. He didn't know anything about the bracelet. So now, talis and tefillin were davened for. He got them back. The bracelet was not davened for. Didn't come back. Now, I had a different question. If she already was able to hold her mouth from talking in this terrible pain that she was suffering through, so wouldn't she deserve to get her bracelet back just for the schar that she kept her mouth shut? That's a tremendous thing that she did. So I would like to suggest that she got even a bigger reward because she had her mouth shut. She taught us this major lesson in tefillah. When you daven for something, you have to daven and say clear what you want. What you don't daven for, you don't get. That tefillah is worth more than the necklace. I mean, easy for me to say, but the concept, though, is that your side of tefillah is a much greater reward to us to understand how the mechanics of tefillah works, and you have to daven for what you ask for. It has to be spoken out clear. That's the koyach of tefillah. Not to understand it's real. Hashem wants us to speak it out. Hashem knows what we need. Hashem knows what we want. He wants us to do tefillah. That's tispalel. That's the words of the power showing us the koyach of tefillah. Speak it up. Speak it out. Hashem knows everything we want. But that's the koyach of tefillah. Now, it's also interesting to note in the tefillah itself. I mean, you see light was running. He pleads with the Malach, save Tzayar, save Tzayar. Because the Malach answers back, yes, I'll save you and I'll save the city too. In his merit. I mean, that's pretty astounding. Avram Avinu went along and davened for the cities, and Hashem said, no, nothing doing. And he stopped davening and he walked away. Light comes along, Light, who is only saved in the schus of Avram. And he says, let me run to Tzayar and save the city. And he says, okay, done. Pella, Light should be able to daven. Now, Rashi did tell us a very important halacha here also about tefillah. When a chayla davens, the chayla is the most powerful tefillah himself. You see that by Yishmael and his mother Hagar. Hashem listens to the chayla himself. The power of tefillah is very effective. People always think, go to the tzaddik. It's true. People used to go to Chavetz Chaim and say, begged him to daven for him. He said, but you have the greater power yourself. Daven yourself. So here, Light was the chayla. His tefillah was the most potent, so he could even save Tzayah. He was the chayla, a bigger power tefillah. Zweitens, the second thing you could say about Light also was, that's an amazing thing that Light did. All night long with the Malachim, what's he doing? He's pleading for Sodom. Him also. He was also pleading for Sodom. The Rishayim. No, he finds something good about them to be made. Let's tell you about them. If Lloyd can find something good about these people of Sodom and be mamlitz for them and advocate for them, then that already itself can accomplish. Because the Zohar says, why did Noach daven for his generation? Why not? So because Noach was scared, maybe he himself won't even be saved. Rishayim. Nevertheless, Rabbi Elazar says he should have davened. Why? Why? Because he says an amazing thing. Because Baruch Hu loves when people advocate on behalf of his creations. Like Gideon. Gideon was not a tzaddik, but he advocated on behalf of the Yidden. Because Baruch Hu said, Lech b'koyach zeh, for this of advocating on their behalf and save them. You daven for them, you advocated for them, now you're going to have koyach to go save them. When you advocate for others, you'll have that koyach. So now Lloyd could be his effective plea on behalf of the others, can make him the powerful advocate for tzoyar. So gewaldige koyach a person has when he can look at the davar toiv of others. So and then that taka, it's interesting. Why did Avraham Avinu daven for Sodom? I mean, we're saying now that you should advocate for others, Rishoyim, so that's a big schus. But what's taka the pshat in that too? Lloyd at least was trying to find good things about them. Now, Avraham didn't say good things about Sodom. So maybe there's 10 tzaddikim, 50 tzaddikim. So Pasha, the tzaddikim should be mashpia on the others, possibly. Okay, that's where it should come from. But the idea to go daven for the Rishoyim by themselves, the Rishoyim are good to die. No, but a Rasha, the Mishnah says, is toiv if he dies, because it's better for him. He won't corrupt himself more, and he won't create more evil in the world. So it's a better thing that the Rasha should be destroyed. What's the mile of having them around? So again, if the tzaddikim will mashpia on them, that's what Avraham Avinu wants. Okay? But the idea, the concept, I saw the Shem Yishmael says, a Morid Kazach. The Avraham Avinu kept saying, like we said also before, Achav or Efer, I'm just dust and ash. Well, why is that being brought into the bar, into the request over here? Because Avraham Avinu said, I'm dust, I should have been pulverized, and I went to fight the four kings. Efer, I should have been ash when Nimrod threw me in the fire. But I'm not, and you saved me, Hashem. Because you made him to me, I became a vehicle of hatova. I now do good to others. I'm just mirroring you. You did toiv to me, I extended toiv to others. So what's the problem, Shlaim and Amira? They're not mative. You gave them so much bountiful things, but they're not using it for the right things. But if now you have compassion on them, and now you'll be mative to them to allow them to live, so it's a nuchias, so whatever bounty that they have within them, now is coming from your toiv. They in turn will become meitivim. They will now become good people, and they will give it to others. But there you need the 50 or the 10 that will be at least the nucleus to start. The makar of bracha, they should be able to start it off. But a person has to understand where he comes from, the hatava that he gets, he can see how he wants to distribute it, or where it comes from, to understand if it's a source of bracha. It can be a very powerful way of doing things, and we should daven that wherever we should have the kaichas should be used in a way to bring to cover to Shemayim.